this Diablo 2 Resurrected Beginner Guide, I'll be giving some general guidelines and tips that will help you get started with Diablo 2. This Diablo 2 guide is intended for newcomers, but if you haven't played in a while, you might find it useful to refresh your memory on some basic mechanics. The first thing that you need to do when you start the game is decide which class you'll be playing. If you're a newcomer, I strongly recommend that you pick a class based on your liking and not based on any build guide. The reason for this is that most builds heavily rely on powerful items that you likely won't be able to get for at least the first 50 to 100 hours of the game. This will mean that you'll end up struggling as you progress through the game, resulting in a frustrating experience. Instead, you should start playing a class that is appealing to you and learn about the game as you progress through the different acts and difficulties. This will give you a better grasp of the mechanics, allowing you to define your own playstyle, at which point you'll be better suited to search for a build and devote to it. With a good build, all classes are very strong at endgame, but each of them have very unique playstyles. We'll be publishing individual guides and builds for each class, but I want to give you a basic overview of each of them in case you're still on the fence regarding which one to choose. The Sorceress is one of the most popular characters because of her ability to quickly maneuver through the battlefield and attack from a safe position with ranged spells. She can use fire, ice, and lightning spells and has one of the best abilities in the game called Teleport, which allows her to quickly move through the map or escape from any danger. She has a low health pool, which often means that you need to constantly keep a safe range and avoid enemy attacks. The Amazon uses lances to fight up close with enemies, or bows, crossbows, and javelins to attack from a safe distance. She is best used to kite enemies, dealing enormous amounts of damage with each strike. Amazons rely on running speed to quickly move through the battlefield, which can be both a good or a bad thing depending on the situation. Paladins use defensive and offensive auras to buff both themselves and allies on the battlefield. They are very tanky due to their shield abilities and defensive auras, but without enough gear they can fall behind in damage compared to other classes. It's worth mentioning that this downside is only noticeable during early gameplay, as fully equipped paladins are one of the highest DPS classes in the game. The Necromancer can summon minions to fight by his side against the forces of evil. He can also use curses to debilitate enemies, turning the tide of battle in his favor. He also has access to ranged spells, allowing him to stay at a safe position most of the time. Summoner Necromancers require corpses to raise their army, which means that they might need some time to get going on each run. Barbarians are very tanky and fight enemies face to face. They have access to shouts, which acts as buffs that affects both themselves and party members, greatly increasing both defensive and offensive capabilities for a long period of time. They can also increase their affinity with most weapon types, opening up the possibility to numerous and very distinct builds for both PvP and PvE. Druids use the power of nature to fight against the forces of evil. They are sort of a jack-of-all-trades class, combining the ability to summon companions, transform into a beast to fight up close, and use magical abilities to fight from a safe distance. While they have access to a wide range of abilities, you'll need to focus on a specific category to effectively pass through to the endgame. Assassins can run very quickly across the battlefield and use spells and traps to damage enemies. Traps can be laid on the ground and will periodically attack enemies within range, while you avoid attacks taking advantage of your mobility. Most people don't know it, but assassins can open closed chests without keys, which is very useful during early gameplay and saves inventory space during late game. Defeating enemies will grant you experience, resulting in your character leveling up. Each time you level up, you'll be awarded with 5 attribute points and 1 skill point. There are 2 different ways you can respec your character in Diablo 2, and the first one is by completing the Den of Evil quest in Act 1, which can be done 1 time per difficulty, resulting in 3 respecs total per character. The second one is by crafting a token of absolution, and you can find all the information on how to craft it on our wiki. So don't be too concerned with making a huge mistake, because you can respec as many times as you like using tokens of absolution. Attributes have very little impact on your overall stats and are mainly used to determine the equipment that you can use. You should distribute your attribute points between 3 different stats, which are strength, dexterity, and vitality. Most builds won't need any points assigned into energy, so even if you feel that you're lacking mana during early gameplay and might feel tempted to assign points there, don't do it, as this will be compensated by your equipment in the long run. Most equipment, such as weapons and armor, have strength requirements that must be met in order to be used. The amount you'll require will heavily depend on your build. I would recommend that you assign between 100 to 120 points to be able to equip the most popular endgame equipment, distributed the following way: 45 points by level 20, 75 points by level 45, and 100 to 120 points by level 70. Similar to strength, some equipment will require dexterity to be used. The amount of dexterity required by your character will highly depend on your equipment choices. If you're using a shield, its block chance will depend on 2 things: the type of shield that you are using and the amount of dexterity that you have. The block chance caps at 75%, so if you're using a shield, it's recommended that you assign enough points to hit the 75% cap. This will vary depending on what equipment you have, so you'll have to do the math yourself. Just make sure it's enough to hit the cap. All remaining points that you didn't spend on Strength or Dexterity should be assigned into Vitality. Each point assigned into Vitality will increase your life points, greatly increasing your survivability. You can hold Shift to assign all remaining points at the same time. Energy increases your total amount of mana, allowing you to cast more spells. Mana can easily be acquired through equipment later in the game, so I wouldn't recommend spending points here unless absolutely necessary. Each class has 3 different skill trees, each of them composed by 10 different skills for a total of 30 skills for each class. With most classes, you'll end up using 1 or 2 different active skills at all times, so I highly recommend that you stick with 1 or 2 trees for each of your characters. You can assign hotkeys to your spells, allowing you to quickly swap them during combat. Even if some abilities are unlocked at higher levels, that doesn't mean that they are stronger. In fact, the most popular skills are often found in the middle of the trees. I strongly suggest that you try the different skills of your class until you find the one that really goes with your playstyle. Once you do, focus on maxing out that skill and you'll quickly notice an increase in your power level. You can save up skill points when you level up, but you'll only be able to use them for abilities that you would be able to get for that level. For example, if you save up 1 skill point from level 5, when you reach level 6 you'll have 2 skill points to assign, but one of them will only be useful for level 1 spells. You can increase skills up to 20 by spending skill points, so you might wonder where to assign points once you've maxed out that skill that you like. Most skills have synergies within the same skill tree, meaning that assigning points into other skills will passively increase the power of your current skill. For example, imagine that you're playing an Ice Sorceress. Your 2 main skills will probably be Ice Blast for dealing with individual targets and Blizzard to deal with crowds of enemies. In the case of Ice Blast, you'll receive synergy from the skills Ice Bolt, Glacial Spike, Blizzard, and Frozen Orb. On the other hand, you'll also increase the following skills by spending points in Ice Blast: Ice Bolt, Glacial Spike, and Blizzard. This means that if you have both Ice Blast and Blizzard at 20, Ice Blast will get an additional 160% damage from Blizzard, and Blizzard will get an additional 100% damage from Ice Blast. Do note that synergies are only considered from actual skill points assigned to a skill, and plus skill modifiers on items won't provide any synergy advantages. You can check out skills on the wiki to learn how skills synergize with each other. Equipment is usually the deciding factor when it comes to determining how strong your character is. Not only that, but some builds will only become viable if you have all the corresponding pieces, meaning that you won't be able to try some builds until you gather all the required equipment. Since loot is random, you won't have control over the equipment that you get during early and even mid-game gameplay other than creating rune words. Runes are a special type of socketed item that will not only provide unique properties, but they can also be combined with other runes to create what's called a rune word. Rune words can be formed by inserting runes in a specific order inside certain types of equipment. The item must be normal rarity, able to support the rune word, and it needs to have the same amount of sockets as runes are required. Note that some magical items have sockets on them, but even if you put the runes in the right order, the rune word will not be created and you'll essentially lose your runes, so be sure to use normal rarity items only. While rune words are often referred to as endgame equipment, some of them can be crafted very early into Diablo 2 Resurrected and should not be so hard to come by. If you're lacking a base, you can check with the merchants as they often sell socketed items, but make sure they are normal in rarity. Rune words are the most reliable way to gear up your character while you advance through the game, so I strongly suggest that you take a look at the complete list on our wiki and periodically check the runes that you have and the rune words that you can craft. I've added a link to this page in the description, so make sure you bookmark it because you'll be referring to this page quite frequently. Runes can be farmed by doing Countess runs. The Countess is a super unique monster that can be found inside the Forgotten Tower in Act 1. Each time you kill her, she will always drop between 1 and 3 runes, and their level will depend on the difficulty setting. Here are some rune word examples that can be crafted by farming the Countess on normal difficulty. Make sure you check out the wiki for other recipes. Besides rune words, there are some general guidelines on the stats that you should be looking for on your items to make sure that your character scales up with the increased difficulty. Plus to skills is one of the best offensive stats that you can find on your equipment. Increasing all skills or the skills that you use the most will greatly boost your outgoing damage. This modifier is really hard to come by, but it's usually present on class-specific items like staves for the Sorceress and wands for the Necromancer. Plus damage and plus elemental damage. If you're running physical attack builds, finding a weapon with enhanced attack or elemental damage can greatly increase your damage output. You can always equip the weapon to see how it modifies your stats from the stat menu. Faster cast rate. Faster cast rate allows your character to cast skills faster. This has huge impact on offensive abilities, greatly increasing your DPS. Increased attack speed. This mod increases the attack speed for your character. This is great for melee and bow builds. Plus 2 resistances or all resistances. Increasing your elemental resistances has a huge impact on survivability, so I'd recommend making this a priority over other defensive stats. Life. If you find yourself dying too quick even after increasing your elemental resistances, increasing your health is the second best way to increase your chances of survival. Faster block rate. This reduces the time required to block a new attack with your shield, allowing you to gain more damage per second. Faster hit recovery. Reduces the time required to recover control of your character after getting hit. This can often prevent stun locks by groups of enemies and allow you to strike back faster after getting hit. Plus strength, plus dexterity, or plus vitality. Some items, specifically rings and amulets, can provide you with a lot of attribute points. This can come in handy during your mid-stage gameplay, allowing you to use items that you don't have the required stats to use yet. Magic Find. Magic Find affects the quality of items dropped by enemies, meaning that you have higher chances of finding magical, rare, unique, and set items. Better drops will result in becoming more powerful. Faster Walk. Increasing your walking speed can help you navigate the map much faster, reducing the time required to complete your runs. Elemental resistances are key when trying to survive in Diablo 2 Resurrected. Most enemies deal elemental damage, and having high resistances will mitigate a great percentage of this damage. For this reason, I strongly recommend that you focus on equipment pieces that provide plus resistances during the normal difficulty of the game. You can check your current resistances by opening the stat menu and looking at the bottom of the screen. Resistances cap at plus 75%, and ideally you want to max all of them when you're reaching the end of normal difficulty. Make sure to periodically check your equipment to balance them out and get them as high as possible, because anything over 75% is lost. You should also know that increasing difficulty levels has a huge impact on elemental resistances, with Nightmare reducing all categories by -40 and Hell reducing them by -100, meaning that on the Hell difficulty you'll need a whopping plus 175% to max out each elemental resistance. Completing the Prison of Ice quest in Act 5 will grant you plus 10 to all resistances, resulting in a passive increase of plus 30 if you complete them on all difficulties. Enemies will constantly drop loot when you defeat them, and at first it might be a little difficult to determine what you should pick up or not. There are 6 types of rarities in Diablo 2: normal, magical, rare, crafted, set, and unique. Normal, white items usually don't have any kind of stats and are only useful as bases during end game, but since this is a beginner guide, I'll just recommend that you pass on them for the time being. Socketed items, gray. All rarities can have sockets, but only normal socketed items can be used as bases for rune words. The item will need to have the exact amount of sockets as the rune word, as well as being the correct type. I strongly recommend that you pick up and stash away items that fit the rune words you want to make. Magical items, blue, have 1 or 2 random additional stats, but they are not usually worth picking up since all other categories are better. Crafted items, orange. Crafted items become relevant during endgame and can't be dropped by monsters, so I'll leave these for another video. Rare items, yellow. Rare items can have from 2 to 6 random additional stats and are usually worth picking up and identifying to check if they are worth keeping or not. Unique items, gold. Unique items have unique names, images, and attributes. Their attributes are fixed, but they usually range between different levels, for example, plus 20 to plus 30 strength. These items are almost always worth picking up and can have unique stats that can only be present on them. Set items, green. Similar to unique, set items have unique names, images, and attributes. They don't have unique stats on their own, but will provide them when many pieces of the same set are equipped. It's difficult to find all set pieces on your own, but you might be able to get them through trade or borrow them from a friend. Ethereal items, gray. These items have increased stats but can't be repaired, meaning that they'll be destroyed when they reach 0 durability. Ethereal items don't lose durability while used by mercenaries, however, and since they have better stats, they are usually a better option for your merc. Potions are a huge part of Diablo 2, as they are the best reliable way to replenish life and mana. I strongly recommend that you always have potions on your belt and inventory so that you don't have to come back to town. Health and mana potions will replenish your resources over a short period of time and have no cooldown. Consuming many consecutive potions won't speed up the process, so try to stay calm and drink 1 or 2 potions at a time. If your health quickly drops and you are surrounded by enemies, rejuvenation potions are the best choice since they immediately recover a percentage of both your health and mana. You can acquire potions from the potion vendor of each town. The quality of the potions will depend on the act and difficulty level. A very handy trick here is that you can hold shift, right-clicking and buying on the desired potion, and it will fill your entire belt for that category. You can then unequip the belt, which will place the potions that were held by your belt in your inventory. Re-equip the belt and buy again, and you'll now have a full belt and a full spare in your inventory. You can also hold left shift and left click on a potion in your inventory to quickly equip it into your belt. This is the fastest way to re-equip your belt during combat. The left shift and right clicking function works for any other consumable item, such as town portals or identifying scrolls, saving you a lot of clicks in the process. One thing that many people don't know is that health and mana potions have different values for each character. For example, a super healing potion will heal the Necromancer for 320 health, while it heals 640 to the Barbarian, so if you're going to play a different character, you might need to get used to its heal values. Antidote potions and thawing potions will not only cure their respective status effect, but also provide plus 50 resistance to their corresponding elemental resistance, making them great for difficult parts such as Act 1's boss and Act 2's boss. The Horadric Cube is a unique quest item that can be found during the Horadric Staff quest. The Horadric Cube takes up 4 inventory slots but has a 12 storage capacity, granting you a net gain of 8 inventory slots. You can safely store items inside without any worries. Additionally, the cube has many different recipes that you can use to combine different items and create new ones. This goes from creating rejuvenation potions, upgrading runes and gems, creating crafted items, and much more. You can visit the wiki for a complete list of recipes. Charms are a special type of item that provides you with passive bonuses just by having them in your inventory. Note that they need to be in your inventory to function and that they won't work if stored inside the Horadric Cube or your stash. There are 3 types of charms: small charms, 1 slot, large charms, 2 slots, and grand charms, 3 slots. The stats that they can have depend on their size. While you might be tempted to retain all of the charms that you find, they end up taking a lot of inventory space, which will often mean you pick up less loot. I suggest you keep charms that have a real impact on your gameplay to avoid this. Here are some of the most sought out attributes on charms. In addition to normal charms, there are 3 unique charms in Diablo 2 Resurrected. These are Guide's Fortune, Hellfire Torch, and Annihilus. You can only have one of each in your inventory, but they all provide great boosts to your character. The Annihilus and Hellfire Torch can be acquired by defeating specific endgame content, and having them in your inventory greatly reduces your stat investment into strength and dexterity. Having both in your inventory will save you between 20 and 40 stat points that you can spend into Vitality, greatly increasing your health pool. The additional passive resistances will also allow you to depend less on plus all resistance equipment, opening up more options to you. If you don't have a Hellfire Torch or an Annihilus, I strongly recommend that you get them as soon as you can afford to. Perfect rolled ones are very expensive, but you can get bad rolled ones for very affordable prices. Make sure to get a low roll when you're starting off and then upgrade it when you have enough money. Mercenaries can be recruited at towns and will aid you in combat. While they are not very strong, they do help in battle by dealing damage and luring enemies away from you. Act 2 Mercenaries are the best choice for all builds due to their Paladin auras and the ability to equip polearm weapons. Being able to use polearms is very important because many powerful rune words can be created on them, providing various buffs or debuffing enemies. You can recruit this mercenary from Grease and Luke Lane, which is in Act 2. When it comes to selecting an aura, the Prayer Mercenary found on normal difficulty and the Holy Freezor Mercenary on Nightmare are your best options. The Prayer aura provides heal regeneration, allowing you to survive longer without using potions. The Holy Freezor slows enemies around you, providing great crowd control. Mercenaries earn experience at a slower rate, so in the early or mid-game, it's best to visit the town once in a while and rehire them so they match your current level. When doing so, always remember to remove their equipment first, as hiring a new mercenary will erase all the equipment held by the previous one. Ethereal items won't lose durability while carried by mercenaries, so take advantage of this and equip them with the best ethereal items you find. You can share your own healing potions with your mercenary as well. To do so, press and hold Shift and then right-click on the desired potion or its designated hotkey. If you're using controller, hold down the left trigger and press the appropriate button on the D-pad. If you're using a shield, there's a big difference on the chance to block based on if your character is either running or walking. While you walk, the percentage chance to block is exactly what's displayed on your stat sheet, but while you run, your block chance is reduced to 1/3 of that percentage. This is not displayed by the in-game menu, but does have a great impact on your blocking chance, so make sure to be walking while holding a shield against enemies. Walking is also very useful to help you control your character when you have a very high run speed, so getting in the habit of toggling it on and off will make you notice a difference on the battlefield. When you're at a low level, you'll often run out of stamina very fast, meaning you'll be forced to walk to recover it. Buying and carrying a couple of stamina potions early on will prevent this, saving you a ton of time and frustration. Having a town portal scroll at all times is a must, as finding yourself out of potions in the middle of nowhere and not having a way to come back is really annoying. I also strongly suggest that you open a town portal whenever you reach a boss. Portals won't close when you die, so if you fall in battle, you can use the portal to go back, saving a lot of time. Carrying a scroll of Identify can also be very useful, as you can identify items on the battlefield, saving you a trip to town to determine if the item is useful or not. Much like town portal scrolls, it's best to carry a book of these in your inventory. Each belt has a different amount of potion slots, ranging from 8 to 16, allowing you to carry many different potions at the same time. Make sure to always fill your belt when you revisit town, and to always carry a couple of spare potions in your inventory just in case. You can press the tilde key on PC to toggle the always display belt, allowing you to see all potion slots on your belt at all times. You can also store town portal scrolls on your belt, allowing you to quickly use them with your hotkeys. There are many different shrines that you can pick up during your runs. Most of these have very powerful effects, so make sure you always interact with them. The Gem Shrine upgrades a gem that you are currently carrying to its following rarity, so you might want to have a flawless gem at all times in case you stumble across one of these. The Experience Shrine grants you a massive 50% experience bonus, so try to kill as many enemies as you can while you have it to quickly level up. Waypoints are a great way to quickly reach your destination. Make sure you get as many waypoints as you can, as they can be of help to your friends to quickly reach a certain quest or to get where you need to go rapidly. While inside a multiplayer game, you can put an exclamation point before writing down a message. By doing so, the message won't show in the chat box, but will instead be displayed on top of your character. This can be used to get the attention of players in trade rooms or to say something that can only be read by nearby players. You can also make characters say a predefined line by pressing the num keys. You can turn the auto gold pickup function on from the options menu under the gameplay tab. You can also customize your HUD and subtitle options from the options menu. There are some additional commands that can be activated by pressing enter and typing a command. For example, you can hide all items on the ground by writing down /no pickup. This will make it so items on the ground are not highlighted even if you mouse over them unless you press the Alt key. This is very useful for melee characters. You can also type /FPS to display both frames per second and ping. This is specifically useful for hardcore characters, as lag spikes are the easiest way to get killed. You can have two different sets of weapons equipped at the same time. You can quickly swap between them in battle by pressing W on the keyboard, which can be very handy for a second set of abilities or to alter between crowds and individual targets. Sometimes you'll die before being able to open a portal or surrounded by many enemies, making it very difficult to recover your corpse. When this happens, you can save and exit and then join a new game. By doing this, you'll find your corpse with all your equipment right next to you, inside town, saving you a lot of time and frustration. Each location can spawn certain types of enemies, but only certain types will spawn each run. If you're having trouble with an area, try creating a new game, as you might find enemies that are easier to handle with your current build. That's all for our Diablo 2 Resurrected Beginner's Guide. If you have other questions about the game, be sure to drop by our Twitch channel and ask, or visit our Diablo 2 Resurrected Wiki for everything you could possibly want to know about Diablo 2. What did you guys think of the guide? What are some other tips I forgot to mention? What classes and builds are you guys going to be playing at the beginning? Let us know in the comments below.